Sydney's skyline keeps rising, but the ground beneath it is shrinking. 4 natural walls, the Pacific Ocean, 2 vast national parks, and the Blue Mountains lock nearly 5 million people into a box that cannot be expanded. Over the next 2 decades, another 1.4 million residents will have to fit inside its unyielding edges. The city's spectacular growth isn't a story of boundless ambition, it's a warning about running out of space. The true consequences begin with geography, but they won't end there. So what happens when a global city finally hits its limits? Sydney's boundaries are not lines on a map. They are features of the land and sea, fixed in place long before the first surveyor arrived. To the east, the Pacific Ocean forms an absolute edge. The city's earliest neighborhoods press right up to the water, and beyond that there is nothing but open sea. North and south, 2 vast reserves of bushland draw a green belt around the city. Royal National Park, established in 1879, was set aside as a sanctuary from urban expansion, a place for clean air and wild landscape, protected by law for nearly a century and a half. On the opposite side, Ku-ring-gai Chase National Park has guarded the northern edge since 1894, its rugged valleys and sandstone ridges preventing roads and suburbs from marching further up the coast. Together, these parks form a continuous barrier that cannot be rezoned or quietly shifted. To the west, the city meets another kind of wall. The Blue Mountains rise sharply, just 50 kilometers from the city center, their escarpments cutting off any easy passage to the inland plains. Early attempts at westward expansion stalled at these cliffs. Even today, the line between suburb and wilderness is abrupt. Over decades, these boundaries have become more than scenery. They are the frame that holds Sydney in place. The city's growth does not flow outward into open country. Instead, it presses against these immovable edges, each one named and dated, each one as permanent as the stone and water that define it. Inside this box of stone, water, and bushland, the numbers keep rising. Greater Sydney counted 4.9 million residents in 2021. By 2041, that figure is projected to reach 6.3 million, an increase of 1.4 million people in just 2 decades. The city's population is not growing by accident or by slow drift, it is driven by a steady influx from overseas. Net overseas migration alone will add 1.7 million people to New South Wales over this period, far outpacing the natural increase from births over deaths and dwarfing the number of people leaving for other states. Most of this growth will settle inside the boundaries already drawn. By 2041, nearly 2/3 of everyone in New South Wales will live within Greater Sydney. The city is not stretching to fit new arrivals, it is being filled layer by layer within its fixed edges. Each new resident joins a city where every square kilometre is already spoken for, where land is not being created, but divided and redivided. The effect is not just a denser city, but a city under pressure. As the population climbs, the space per person shrinks. Infrastructure, housing, and public services must all adapt to a future where the only way to fit more people is to build upward, squeeze inward, or tunnel below. The boundaries do not move, but the strain inside them grows. Sydney's challenge is not how to expand, but how to accommodate more life inside the same unmoving frame. In the heart of Sydney's inner south, Green Square stands as a living example of what happens when a city runs out of room to grow outward. Once an industrial zone of warehouses and factories, this precinct has been remade into one of Australia's densest residential neighbourhoods. Over 61,000 people are expected to call Green Square home by 2030, packed into a patchwork of mid-rise and high-rise towers stretching across Zetland, Alexandria and Waterloo. Here, the city's response to limited space is visible in every detail. Apartments often measure less than 60 square meters, with rooms stacked tightly above and beside one another. Streets that once echoed with the sound of freight trucks now fill with the footsteps of thousands of new residents, all drawn by the promise of proximity to the city and the airport. For many, the trade-off is clear. Living in Green Square means giving up a backyard for a balcony and swapping spare rooms for shared courtyards and rooftop gardens. The payoff is a short commute and easy access to shops, parks, and public transport, amenities that are increasingly out of reach in the city's outer fringes. A resident puts it simply: you learn to live with less space, but everything you need is close. That's the compromise. Green Square's transformation is not a celebration of vertical living for its own sake. It is a reaction to a city boxed in by geography, where every available parcel of land is pressed into service. The human scale of this change is felt in the rhythm of daily life, in the compact kitchens, the crowded lifts, and the constant negotiation for sunlight and privacy. This is density as necessity, not as a lifestyle trend. The lived reality of a city forced to fit more people within the same unyielding frame. Beneath Sydney's streets, the city is building downward. Layers of infrastructure now fill the space that once lay empty below the surface. The new Sydney Metro tunnels run deep under the central business district and harbour, stacked above and below existing rail lines, water mains, and century-old sewer pipes. At Martin Place and Barangaroo, engineers have threaded new train corridors between old sandstone and a tangle of utilities, sometimes carving out platforms more than 30 metres underground. Every layer added increases the complexity and cost. Where other cities might lay tracks or roads on open ground, Sydney must tunnel, bend, and stack each new project to fit inside a crowded subterranean map. Motorways follow the same pattern. West Connex and North Connex do not sprawl across the surface. Instead, they dive beneath suburbs, curving around the roots of protected bushland and skirting the edge of the Blue Mountains. Some tunnels run so deep they pass below existing infrastructure, weaving through bedrock to avoid what cannot be moved. The result is a network of roads and rails that cross each other at different depths, with each new layer forced to adapt to what lies above and below. A tunneling engineer describes it as working inside a layer cake, where every slice is already claimed. He puts the challenge plainly: we do not choose to go deeper, we have to. There is simply nowhere left on the surface. Sydney's engineering feats are not signs of boundless ambition. They are responses to a city boxed in by its own geography, buying time by burrowing further down. Each tunnel, each stacked corridor, is a reminder that the space for easy solutions has already run out. Sydney's property market is often blamed on speculation or policy, but the real driver is the scarcity of land itself. In 2024, the median price for a new residential lot in Greater Sydney reached $666,670, even on the city's outer edge. Only 190 hectares of serviced, developable industrial land remain available for the next year, a deficit that will widen as demand rises. This is not a market failure. It is a simple equation of too many people and too little space. Every new apartment or house is not just a home, but a bid for a share of what little land can still be built on. As the city's boundaries hold firm, scarcity is converted directly into cost. Affordability is not slipping away by accident. It is being squeezed out by the physical limits of the city itself. Sydney's population is not only growing, it is aging. By 2041, the proportion of residents aged 65 and over is projected to reach 21%. In a city where every square metre is already claimed, this shift brings a new kind of pressure. More people will need accessible homes, health services, and transport, needs that cannot be met by simply building further out. The same boundaries that force young families into apartments will also shape where and how older residents live. As the city fills, the demands of an aging population will compete with those of a growing workforce, all within the same fixed borders. The question is no longer just how many people Sydney can fit, but how it can serve them as those needs change. The limits have not been lifted, they have only been postponed. Sydney's boundaries are fixed, but demand keeps rising. Every new resident forces the city to build higher, dig deeper, or pay more. The limits aren't moving. and neither is the pressure. What happens when a city's growth outpaces the land beneath it? Let me know your thoughts below.